ॐ ज्ञानं तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदमयं ददति स्वापदन्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपां साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna Om, welcome to you as well. Thank you for joining.
Hare Krishna Guruji.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 14. This chapter completes the discussion on the 64 items of devotional service, elaborates on the wonderful effects of performing the five potent forms of devotional service described in chapter 12, and begins to discuss some items wrongly considered to be angas of bhakti. So these 5 most potent items are so important that yet again we are discussing the effects of these 5 most potent forms of devotional service. What were these 5? Nam, Dham, Diti, Devotee, Bhagavatam. So the relation of devotional service to other spiritual practices. Srila Rupa Goswami continues to explain why certain items commonly thought to be angas of bhakti cannot be accepted as such. Are other spiritual practices bhakti or support? Are other spiritual practices bhakti or support for bhakti? So Rupa Goswami is also explaining why other items like varnashram, in of itself, other rituals, things like that, why they cannot be accepted as the angas of bhakti. Sadhana bhakti awakens love of Godhead by fixing one's mind on Krishna. However, neither jnana, cultivation of knowledge, nor vairagya, cultivation of detachment, fix the mind on Krishna. So, in of themselves, jnana and vairagya don't fix the mind on Krishna, but they support the fixing of the mind on Krishna. Janayati ashu vairagyam. So, these vairagya and jnana are byproducts of devotional service or support of devotional service, but in of themselves, they don't support devotional service. In jnana, one fixes the mind on discriminating between matter and spirit, not on Krishna. In vairagya, the mind fixes itself on the object to be rejected, not on Krishna. Therefore, neither jnana nor vairagya is a practice of sadhana bhakti. So our process is positive, right? But the practices of our practices are positive, but the practices of the impersonalists, for example, are negative, meaning that rather than restraining the senses, the process of bhakti is engaging the senses. And the impersonalists are simply trying to restrain the senses. So for them, jnana and vairagya are the foremost important things. And they actually, in the philosophy, Shankaracharya, he says that jnana is a core tenet of bhakti. Jnana fixes the mind on Krishna, on Brahman. And uh, um, and Shankaracharya says, more important than bhakti is jnana. Bhakti is just a path to jnana, and it is through knowledge that one breaks out of this world. And see, the whole focus, therefore, is to focus on matter, that I'm not matter, neti neti. Similarly, in vairagya, the focus is what to give up. This is all illusion. This is all maya. That's the focus. Therefore, they are called mayavad. Because the focus becomes maya, what to give up, what we are not. The focus is not what are we and what do we accept, right? In the process of bhakti, we focus on what are we, not so much on we are not matter, but we are spirit. And similarly, the focus is on what is the object of my worship, not what is to be rejected. Therefore, neither jnana nor vairagya is a practice of sadhana bhakti. But we are told to renounce. Why? Because this practice of sadhana bhakti is um, uh, including jnana and vairagya as a support. Knowledge and renunciation can initially help a devotee withdraw his mind from the whirlpool of sense gratification. Thus, they can sometimes support bhakti, although they are not integral aspects of pure devotional service. Yes, so the four regulative principles are vairagya, leading a simple life, only trying to eat foods in the mode of goodness. This is all vairagya. And this can help, and especially in the initial stages. But this is why we focus, when a new devotee comes, we focus on the positive process, chant, hear, serve. And we don't focus on the others. We know that if they chant, they will gradually, automatically, willfully follow the four regulated principles. Some scholars recommend that knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating oneself to devotional service. But actually, that is not a fact. Actually, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, which are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness, may be accepted in the beginning, but ultimately they may also come to be rejected. For devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentimental or devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentiment or desire for such service. It requires nothing more than sincerity. Mm. So even Even a meat eater can perform devotional service. Of course, Krishna will not accept that service until the bad habits are given up. But one can still engage in devotional service. Anyone can engage in devotional service. The sentiment or desire for such service is necessary. Knowledge and renunciation are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness. But they are not the essence of bhakti. One can still perform bhakti and then become renounced. And ultimately, one is it's not thinking about jnana and vairagya. Like on the stage of Raganuga, so Krishna says that with the strong acts of detachment, we cut the bonds of this world, right? Like in the case of the banyan tree in the Gita, it says with the strong acts, with the sharp acts of knowledge, we cut the branches of the ties of this material world, what's entangling us in this material world. However, once those branches are cut, then one throws away that axe, because jnana and vairagya are not sometimes compatible with spontaneous love for Krishna. And again, this is a very high stage, not on our stage, but on a high stage. Just like the gopis of Vrindavan, right? They are, or the cowed residents of Vrindavan, they are accepting a beautiful Nanda Maharaj and Radha Yashoda and their attendants. They're accepting a beautiful palace and they're living in that beautiful palace. Every day they're eating rasgullas and gulab jamun and sandesh. So they're not practicing vairagya. They're not leading an austere life in the forest. If they say, I want to be a vairagi and I want to go to the forest and in a loincloth, I want to sit there and meditate, then such a vairagya will become a disturbance, will become contradictory with their mood of service, right? So such vairagya will not be conducive for their devotional service. And so thus, the scriptures tell us that the residents of Vrindavan, they will not accept that vairagya because that is not pleasing to Krishna. In the same way, they will not accept the cultivation of knowledge. In the associates of Lord Chaitanya, we see that knowledge in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, knowledge was not the prized qualification. In fact, those who were very knowledgeable, they were sometimes not part of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. They would not accept it. But bhakti, or devotion to Krishna, that was the most important qualification. So devotional service, spontaneous devotion to Krishna, that is the best qualification. As explained in chapter 5, bhakti is completely independent and self-sufficient. There's no need to practice jnana and vairagya to achieve detachment, because detachment automatically follows devotion. If the heart is full of desires to serve Krishna, there's no room for material desires. This is the key point. If the heart is full of desires to serve Krishna, there's no room for material desires. In bhakti, one pleases the Lord by one's love for him. Expression of such love requires a soft heart, easily moved by emotions. The paths of knowledge and renunciation, however, train one to develop a stoic heart, unmoved by emotions. For emotions tend to push one into sense gratification. Thus, the processes of jnana and vairagya can impede devotional service. So we were actually just talking about this yesterday, how in a different setting, how jnana and vairagya, and particularly austerity, tapa. So um, Krishna says, yajna dana tapa should never be given up, but austerity or tapasya without bhakti hardens the heart. If we perform great austerities, but it's not, for Krishna directly, if it's not mixed with devotion, it will harden the heart. Just like we see the great sages like Durvasa Muni, who have done so much austerity. If you see them, they're generally quite angry, and they easily curse. Those who are performing jnana and vairagya, but without bhakti, their heart will become very, very hard. And that hardness of heart will make it hard to practice bhakti also. Just like in the early days, some of the sannyasis who were new disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who took upon great austerity to become a sannyasi, they would be very fiery. Um, and devotees recall, like they would, uh, chastise very heavily, almost too heavily, because that austerity was so difficult. It's sometimes uh, see, otherwise, when our heart is too soft, then it becomes, engage in sense gratification. So to push sense gratification through jnana and vairagya, one is trying to harden the heart. But then these same sannyasis, as they became, more seasoned in Krishna consciousness, so to say, over the years, right, they softened. And the same potency, in fact, even more spiritual power and potency, but not so much, you could say, uh, uh, difficulty in terms of, doing the vairagya, because the vairagya became easier. So the mood also became easier. So the other extreme is to be so soft that, whenever we see a restaurant, we're eating at that restaurant and we're engaging in sense gratification, we're still a devotee, everything goes, okay, we want to watch TV, we watch TV, then that is useless. That's useless. The other extreme is, okay, we're so hard that we are following all the principles perfectly, yet our mood towards Krishna and the devotees is also very hard because of that intense spiritual practice. It becomes very hard, and then we can even perform offenses, just like any devotees. If they do sometimes too much service or take too much burden of service, where it becomes a burden, that they cannot handle, then they become angry, or it becomes a situation of conflict, or they become very disturbed. So it's still okay because it's in the context of devotional service. It's at least one is trying to serve the Lord, and in that becoming overwhelmed, which happens. It's not like the end of the world. It's a normal thing. However, too much also can sometimes lead to disturbance. So that's the other extreme. And the middle part where we want to be is that jnana and vairagya is there, and service is there, and we are repelled from sense gratification, but on the basis of bhakti or devotion to Krishna, mixed with jnana and vairagya. That is the devotion or bhakti that is doing it, the higher taste in bhakti that is automatically helping us give up the lower tastes, not simply the intellectual and intentional effort of giving them up, right? So, like Queen Kunti says, Gange Voghamudanvati, that let my mind flow to you, Krishna. And when it flows to you, then automatically I won't be attracted to other things. So that is the idea, that in the advanced stages of devotion, we don't have to rely on detachment and knowledge, but rather we can fix our mind in devotional service. And that bhakti automatically makes us detached. There must be some means to cultivate detachment without undergoing the process of jnana and yoga. The process for cultivating detachment without hardening the heart is yukta vairagya. So now, how do we do that? How is it that through bhakti we can cultivate detachment? By engaging the things that we are attached to in Krishna's service. So the attachment is still there, but we're engaging it in Krishna's service so we become more attached to Krishna. Just like here we see the image of the printing press, right? We're attached to doing things. We're attached to working and publishing and earning money and all these things. And Prabhupada engaged that proclivity in the service of Krishna, where devotees could work in the ISKCON press that he set up and use those talents, those desires to design things, to create things in Krishna's service. And in this way, not have to become emotionless or like a stone, desireless, but to engage those desires in an even full way in publishing the highest literatures that we are reading today in our Bhakti Shastri course. Another example is our family, right? In the early days, some devotees were instructed to give up their families, and they're newlyweds, they were just there. But that was an artificial imposition, not a mature instruction. They're asked to give up their families, and then they will become sannyasis, and then this was after Prabhupada's departure, right? Srila Prabhupada, when he was there, he would do everything perfectly. But right after he departed, then some gave up their family life immaturely and fell down. But others, they took that family that they're attached to, and rather giving it up, they engaged it in Krishna service. They made their family Krishna conscious. And by making their family Krishna conscious, they automatically became attached to Krishna. So that is the secret. That is how we become attached to Krishna. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya muchyate. Without personal attachment to sense gratification, without personal attachment to sense objects, one should accept whatever can be used to please Krishna and reject anything else. So this is one of the verses that Rupa Goswami writes in the Nectar of Devotion. Yukta Vairagyam Uchyate. That the real renunciation is not giving up things. The real renunciation is engaging those things in Krishna's service. Like Prabhupada gives the example that three people find a wallet on the street. The first person who is walking down the street and sees a wallet picks it up and says, the Lord has been very merciful to me. He looks in, there's like $500. He says, all 500. This pays my rent and pays my next trip to Hawaii. So that's the karmi. He's taking things and he's accepting it for himself. That we're taking Krishna's and we're taking it ourselves. The second person walks down the street, he sees the wallet and he looks at the wallet and he says, this wallet is not mine. This is not for me to enjoy. It doesn't belong to me. He looks the other way and he walks away. That is the jnani. Who is a jnani? Jnani understands that this world doesn't belong to me. This is not my world. This is Krishna's world. Nothing in this world belongs to me. Everything belongs to God, so I will not accept it. So he gives it up. Through knowledge and renunciation, he gives it up. The third person walks down the street. He sees the wallet. What does he do? He opens it up. He finds the driver's license, the ID. On that is the address. He puts the wallet in an envelope. He mails it to the owner of the wallet. And who is this third one? The first one was a karmi. The second is a jnani. This one is?
Devotee.
Devotee, the bhakti yogi, yes. Because he is remembering that this wallet is not mine, and therefore it's not to be accepted for me nor rejected, but it's meant to be returned, to be used in the service of the actual owner. And that is Krishna consciousness. We can accept anything in this world, even a Harvard degree, or even a nice home and a family situation, whatever. if we use it 100% in Krishna's service. My Guru Maharaj, before departing the year before, this was one of the last instructions that he gave. He said that do a satsang, do a bhakti vriksha in your home, and we had already started, but he he knew, without, we had not told him we had started. We were planning to come and tell him, but before we told him, he said, you should do this. And we were just about to tell him that, oh, but he wanted to give the instruction, because then uh, we always felt that it came from him. And then he said something very interesting. He said that you should make your home into a temple, right? So what's the idea of doing this? It's that we are thinking that this home is ours and this is our, place of enjoyment and happiness. But then he said, you should make your home into a temple by doing bhakti riksha, by doing satsangs in your home, by inviting the Vaishnavas in your home, by doing this. And then he said, the scriptures say that if you do that, then even the demigods and the sages will come to attend that, even they come to bless that gathering of devotees, right? So this is not something, minor, or something that we can neglect, or something just ordinary, right? It's not something ordinary. When we engage what we have in Krishna's service, right? When we make our home into a temple, and we invite devotees, and we or we do a satsang where we're preaching Krishna consciousness, like through bhakti vriksha, sharing Krishna consciousness with others, the Lord is very pleased, and so much so that even the demigods, they come. We cannot see them. The sages, they come, but these great devotees, they can see them. Just like the famous example of Srila Prabhupada, when he was one time, I believe, in London, and the devotees organized a very big program for him in a big auditorium. And there were about 400, seats in the auditorium, and it was meant to be a grand program. And at the end, only 20 people showed up, or 50 people showed up, and the whole hall was empty. Then the devotees went to Srila Prabhupada afterwards, and they said, Prabhupada, we are so sorry. We invited you here, and you spent your time, and no one showed up. It was basically just devotees who showed up, who would listen to Prabhupada anyway in the temple, and a few guests. And they said, Prabhupada, we are so sorry. And Prabhupada responded, why are you sorry? Did you not see that Narad Muni came? Narad Muni was there. The different demigods were there. The sages were there. They all came to attend this program. So in the case of pure devotees, we believe that, well, if Prabhupada is there, then obviously they'll all come to hear Srila Prabhupada. The whole sages, like Vishwaguru, the entire universe is wanting his association. But I never thought that even if ordinary persons do this, it's also the case. And what His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj was telling me is that no, because Prabhupada is still preaching. When we are reading his books, then we are reading Prabhupada's words, right? So he said, even now, if we engage what we have in Krishna's service, if we preach Krishna consciousness in the vicinity of our home, by making our home into a temple, then the sages and the demigods will come to participate. Srila Prabhupada's mission, mood and mission. One should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is a secret. This is a quote from Prabhupada. That is a secret of devotional service. Anything that can be utilized in advancing Krishna consciousness and devotional service should be accepted. For instance, we are using many machines for the advancement of our present Krishna consciousness movement. Machines like typewriters, dictating machines, tape recorders, microphones, and airplanes. Right? Prabhupada coming down in a beautiful airplane. So this is actually the fact. Right? In fact, this verse that we were reading, the previous one, it's saying that when you give up something that can be engaged in Krishna's service, then that's actually not renunciation. So it's not just that renunciation means engaging everything in Krishna's service. But on the other hand, if we have some resource, some talent, but we give it up without engaging it in devotional service, then that is attachment. That is not renunciation. And we learn this from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, to accept the kingdom and engage in Krishna's service, become, change the whole world, right? Engage in Krishna's service. And Arjuna is saying that I don't want to. Krishna, I want to renounce and I want to go to the forest. And what is Krishna telling Arjuna? He's saying that your renunciation is not renunciation. Your renunciation is attachment. You have the 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 talent of being the greatest archer in the world. You have the greatest, brothers and friends to make this amazing army to fight against evil. And yet you don't want to utilize it in my service. Rather, you want to go to the forest. So the Gita is telling us that attachment to material things is an attachment, but also aversion to an activity is also an attachment. We can be averse to something and be attached to being averse, being attached to giving it up. And that could be devotional service, but it could actually just be attachment. When we are averse to smoking cigarettes and we give that up, then that is devotional service. But when we are averse to accepting an airplane to preach Krishna consciousness, like many yogis in India were, Prabhupada was not, then that aversion to using technology in Krishna's service can be a form of attachment. So we have to be very careful that what is our motivation? Renunciation externally doesn't mean real renunciation necessarily. So aversion to something is also a form of attachment. Just like I may be averse to cleaning the toilets, right? To cleaning the house or cleaning the bathroom. That aversion to cleaning is my attachment. That's not my renunciation. I'm very renounced. I never want to clean the house, right? Like, Hari Priya and Om, they can all, relate with this. Right? I'm averse to not cleaning up my mess. Jesse, I'm so renounced. I play with my toys and I never clean them up. No, that's attachment, right? Because we're attached to playing. But if we're attached to actually serving Krishna, then we'll do anything for him. We'll accept anything. Like Prabhupada said, other yogis, they don't want money. But when someone gives me money, I accept it with both hands. I put both hands forward and I say, please give me, because I need the money for Krishna's service. I'm short of it. I need to build temples. Prabhupada says, sometimes people ask us, why are you utilizing material products if you condemn the advancement of material civilization? But actually, we do not condemn. We simply ask people to do whatever they're doing in Krishna consciousness. This is the same principle on which, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advised Arjuna to utilize his fighting abilities in devotional service. Yes, see. Similarly, we are utilizing these machines for Krishna's service. So someone may say that, well, look, these machines are destroying the world, they're destroying the environment. And if you are utilizing these things in God's service, then you are participating in destroying the environment, like riding on planes or cars. And so what is the difference? You are also you are also encouraging Kalyug by using these machines. However, the difference is huge. When a devotee engages technology in Krishna's service, then that engagement leads to an all auspicious result, right? That's one of the results of bhakti, all auspiciousness. Of course, we have to be honest that are we doing this for Krishna's service or for our own benefit? So there's a difference there. But Someone says, well, if everyone did that, then if everyone became a devotee and everyone did that, then wouldn't the world be? No. Yes, if everyone does is Krishna conscious, then just see how quickly this world changes. The problem is that everyone is not Krishna conscious. So when a devotee um, uses material things in Krishna's service, he uplifts that. He purifies. Just like there's nothing intrinsically wrong with using a phone. And devotees, the greatest devotees, they're using the phone continuously for preaching Krishna consciousness, making 50 phone calls a day. But the same phone, when it comes in the hands of a non-devotee, becomes so detrimental for their spiritual life. Or to a sadhaka, to a new devotee who is using it uh, so like my Guru Maharaj used to say, now because of technology on this phone, you can have all of Prabhupada's books, all the Acharya's books, the whole Vedic literature on your little phone. But he said, but the sad thing is that people don't use it to read Prabhupada's books. They use that same phone, they use it in all sorts of material things, the most horrible things. Srila Rupa Goswami then recommends that one should not be attached to material sense enjoyment, but should accept everything enjoyable which is in relationship to Krishna. For example, eating is necessary, and one wants some palatable dishes to satisfy his sense of taste. So in that case, for the satisfaction of Krishna rather than for the satisfaction of the tongue, some palatable dishes may be prepared and offered to Krishna. Then it is renunciation. Let the palatable dishes be prepared, but unless they're offered to Krishna, one should not accept them for eating. This vow of rejecting anything which is not offered to Krishna is actually renunciation. And by such renunciation, one is able to satisfy the demands of the senses. And by such renunciation, one is able to satisfy the demands of the senses. So Prabhupada here is saying, let the palatable dishes be prepared, but eat it only if it's offered to Krishna. And when we eat that which is only offered to Krishna and we reject anything else, that renunciation of accepting all these wonderful preparations like gulab jamuns, and that renunciation satisfies our senses. We become fully satisfied. Prabhupada, in one place, he says this. He says that if we make this one vow, that I will only eat Krishna prasadam, that is sufficient to take us back home, back to Godhead. That's how powerful is prasadam. And we see that people become devotees just by prasadam. It is just yesterday we were seeing this one lady. She was just eating prasadam from time to time. She's a neighbor, and we would give her prasad from time to time because there's leftovers. Rather than throwing it away, like you cook extra, then there's left. We give it to our neighbors, and we should all do that because they're starving there. No one cooks these days. They're eating out, or they're ordering pizza, and they know it's very unhealthy for them. So they love this prasad, and then and then this same lady, a very well-to-do lady, they're like attorneys, lawyers. She shows up uh, just randomly during the program last night, and when she comes, she doesn't realize, right, there's a program going, or she maybe knew, but her little kid, he like runs in, and and then she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We disturbed your party. You were having a party." Then we explained to her this wasn't a party. This was like a get together, and how she's invited to it. Like, she's welcome to come if she wants to. And she's okay. Starting next week, I'll come. Starting next week, I'll come. And the it's kind of odd to invite your neighbors, because if they become averse, then they're your neighbors and whatnot. So we were not inviting her openly for Bhakti Vriksha, but Krishna arranged, right? The Krishna Prasadam arranged that she walks in at that time, and then she's saying, no, next week I'm going to come. Like, I'm really interested in this. Next time I'm going to come. And it was just by eating Krishna Prasadam. Um, there's one devotee in London. His name just slipped my mind. And he used to do mass prasadam distribution. Maybe he still does, but this is like 15, 20 years ago when I was there and studying there. And he would feed thousands of students Krishna Prasad. Like he was like always whenever you saw him, he was cooking and distributing prasad, cooking and distributing prasad. And a few times I went out with him, and it was just such a mood. He was like from the old times, Prabhupada's time, when they were just like, this was the, Prabhupada said it's a kitchen religion. And he would say, he says, the Bhagavatam says that even the demons become liberated by eating Krishna Prasad. And he said, I've seen it, it's a fact. And he had, in King's, is a suburb of King's something, King's College, he was preaching there, and he had a center there he had made. Like all these people off the streets and students, they would join. They're like just people, normal white British people, like in the dozens. And he had a whole group, a whole temple going just by the distribution of Krishna Prasadam. So it's very, very powerful. Now, one thing to say is that for devotees who are on this path, they do give up opulent prasad. Right? Many devotees give up their phone also. They definitely give up their TV, right? They throw it out. Why do they do this? Because sometimes on the sadhaka platform, or not sometimes, on our platform, just sometimes giving up the device itself that attracts us to Maya helps us focus, helps us advance in our spiritual life. Right? So the principle is to utilize everything in Krishna's service. But if we have something that materially our mind is so attached to that we're unable to utilize in Krishna's service, then sometimes a devotee, for the purpose of spiritual advancement, will temporarily just give it up. It's simpler. And my Guru Maharaj said this, that many devotees, actually Srinivas Pundarika Prabhu, he's here, he put that message in one of the messages, that remembrance in one of the messages, that he said many devotees fell down because of technology and computers, right? And so that's why he didn't want to get too involved in computers. He would just use it for his email and that's it. He said, because it can be very dangerous, especially for sannyasis. And so sometimes we give it up. In the same way, palatable food, it's Krishna Prasad. But if we start eating just for our own senses, then we can get attached to enjoying our senses. So Krishna Prasad is the key that fully purifies our senses. But even in Krishna Prasad, um, you know, we sometimes avoid very, very, very opulent dishes. At the same time, my personal experience is that if we are only eating Krishna Prasad, then automatically it forces us into austerity, because there will be times when there isn't Krishna Prasad, and then we'll just be eating nuts and fruits and not going to the restaurant. And that that leads one, like Prabhupada is saying, it controls the senses. Like one devotee, he didn't have Krishna Prasad. He went to a country, there's no Prasad. And for 1 or 2 weeks, he was just living off of dates. And even though he could have eaten out, but he didn't. So yes, sometimes we will enjoy the Krishna Prasad, but other times we'll see that wonderful, item, not eat it, and that will train the senses. But even if we want to go further, like Raghunath Das Goswami, we can even give up opulent prasad for Krishna's service, even though it's prasad. And he used to do that. Raghunath Das Goswami would take only very simple prasad. In Yukta Vairagya, the senses and emotions remain active. Thus, the heart does not harden. However, because these emotions and activities center exclusively on Krishna's service, they do not lead one into sense gratification. Thus, one does not fall into sense gratification. So, in bhakti and in the process of Yukta Vairagya, one is celebrating the senses and emotions. In fact, it is a true pleasure of the senses. When we go and do something material like watch a movie, all these things, After that, we feel so frustrated, right? Every time, like, or when we eat out, right? I never eat out, but a few times when it was like a completely vegetarian Indian restaurant, and had to go for a work thing. So it was for work purpose, but internally I was kind of looking forward to it, right? I get the chance to eat out. Never have done it. And I have to do it, you have to take your chair out or something. But after that, always felt very dissatisfied. Like, it all looks so good, but the taste of the food is not there, right? Prasadam actually has some special taste, because it's completely tasteless. You just taste the oil, or you just taste the chilies. So the senses are actually unhappy in mature life. When we engage them in bhakti, you celebrate the senses. It's like it's the best party in town. When I was studying in England, we would go to the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and there's no place where there was a better party in town than the Bhaktivedanta Manor. We had amazing kirtan, such beautiful people around you, devotees, such a beautiful deities, just like bursting with flowers and all these things. And then after that, there would be such a huge feast. So they're celebrating the senses, and thus one does not fall into sense gratification. This is, Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is higher sense gratification. Krishna consciousness is also sense gratification. We don't think that the gopis, Mother Yashoda, the cowherd boys, their senses are not being overjoyed. The Bhagavatam says their senses jump with joy. The cowherd boys are eating every type of fruit in the forest of Vrindavan. This is one of the reasons Krishna fights with Dhenukasur, to get those fruits in the palm trees. But they're doing spiritual sense gratification. It's of a higher level, which is pleasing the senses of Krishna, by which one's own senses become pleased. That's sense gratification. So false renunciation is Phalgu Vairagya. Real renunciation is Yukta Vairagya. To reject something one could use to please Krishna is false renunciation, Phalgu Vairagya. It is this type of renunciation that can harm bhakti. So for a long time, I was, when I would give classes, I would just do like what we're doing here, like classes on devotional service, straight from the Bhagavatam. And in my profession, I teach ethics and I teach religion at the university. So one time, Anuttara Prabhu actually scolded me. He said that you're he said, I know communications, and that's why I engage it in Krishna service. It's not that I know communications, so I just don't share it with the devotees. In the same way, he said, you're studying these things, but then if you just go and give a class on the Bhagavatam, which is very nice, that's the goal, but you don't also um, engage your academic training in Krishna service, then that's not as pleasing to Krishna. He says our principle is to engage what we have in Krishna's service, to yukta vairagya. So at that time I understood, it's like, okay, this is actually a disservice to ignore one's educational activities and not try to do that. Just like I mentioned this before in previous classes also, right? That someone is an accountant or lawyer, but when they go to the temple, they just want to wash pots. That's very nice. I mean, that's humility, and we must do that. But when they are requested, can you please help in the temple accounts? Then they say, no, 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 I won't do it. So that is false renunciation. One has to engage one's skills in the service of Krishna. Service executed through wealth and followers. So one may feel that, well, look, I'm doing so much service because I have all these people that um, I am counseling, and they are doing great service. So all that service comes to me, and therefore now that I've preached so much and I've made 40 devotees, I can now sit and eat gulab jamuns while the 40 go and preach Krishna consciousness. But here Rupa Goswami clarifies, I mean, he's so thorough. He clarifies that just like we don't believe in original sin, where someone else's sin, who's our ancestor, can benefit us. In the same way, we don't believe in I don't know, bhakti commission that if our followers do devotional service, then that devotional service becomes ours. If they go, if someone I am preaching to goes and gives $10,000 to the temple, and that's the same as me giving $10,000, and that's why I don't have to give. No, it's not one's own practice of devotional service. A spiritual master may train disciples to worship the deity and do other types of devotional service. This training is certainly his devotional service. See, so the training of the disciples, the preaching of Krishna consciousness to make these people into devotees is that person's devotional service. However, the worship they subsequently perform is their own devotional service, not his. If he does not understand this, he may complacently assume that he is already doing so much through his followers, and thus become complacent in devotional advancement. Wow, right? What an amazing thing. So the preaching of Krishna consciousness and the making of so many devotees, that is the preacher's devotional service. But the service that they do is their service. The encouraging them to do that service, right? Engaging them, which is a big task, right? To engage people, to encourage them, to resolve the disputes, to keep them happy in Krishna consciousness is a big task, right? So that is the spiritual master or the guide's devotional service. But the particular service that they do to the deity once they're engaged, that is not the guru's or the teacher's devotional service. And this is why we see the great souls, just like these great spiritual masters that we have in our movement, pure devotees, they have so many disciples doing devotional service, so many disciples doing deity worship, yet they themselves are eager to run on the altar and do devotional service. They're trying to just, go to the altar and perform the artiks and or do their own japa so nicely. They could think, well, all of my disciples are chanting 16 rounds. So they're chanting, all their good Krishna consciousness is coming to me. But no, they're doing their own sadhana. Similarly, a wealthy person may give a large donation to fund a huge temple or Krishna conscious project. That donation itself is his devotional service. The service subsequently carried out therein is not his sadhana. It is the sadhana of those devotees who actually execute the services. Without understanding this, one can become complacent. Why is Rupa Goswami making a point in this? Because he doesn't want us to become complacent. If a rich man builds a temple, it is to his credit that he has built the temple. The building of the temple is his credit. But all the seva that goes on inside is not his credit. And this is why sometimes in kind of ritualistic circles, people have brahmanas do yagyas for them, right? Do this puja, and there's 10 brahmanas doing some puja for the betterment of the family, while the family inside is sitting and watching TV. So what is, they're under a misconception. Why? Because they are thinking that someone else can do puja for them. Yes, the spending of money that they offer to the brahmanas who are doing it, the effort of organizing it, that is to their credit. But the puja itself is the credit of the person doing it. They cannot commission people to do puja for them. Okay, here's 100, yagyas going on all for me, and I just get, 2% of it. This is my commission. So therefore, if you do 50 yagyas, that'll be 100%. No, Krishna's smarter. Saintly qualities. Maybe, if we have saintly qualities, then that means we're a pure devotee. What about cultivation of saintly qualities like ahimsa, non-violence, brahmacharya, celibacy, satyam, truthfulness? Is this also a part of sadhana bhakti? Mm. Although they may put one in a more advantageous position for appreciating God. Such saintly qualities do not directly cause remembrance of Krishna. Therefore, they are not practices of pure devotional service, sadhana bhakti. Right? Sometimes people are very, you know, very naturally in the mode of goodness, right? Very trained since childhood. They have these qualities of, nonviolence, celibacy, truthfulness. They come from a very pious family. But those qualities sometimes become a obstacle in their progress, because one can become very proud that I have these qualities. I'm good. I'm very advanced. That's why sometimes we find that vegans, people who live minimalist life, like New Age and these things, sometimes they are slow in coming to Krishna consciousness. They sometimes don't come, but the person who's like struggling with his life and just a plumber who's you know has this dirty job, they come to Krishna consciousness because the qualities in themselves don't directly cause the beginning of bhakti. Now, if one is a devotee and one has these qualities, then that devotee, like we read in the Gita, becomes very dear to Krishna. Krishna says this 4 or 5 times, that those who are humble, tolerant, see friends and enemies as in equal sight, don't discriminate between friends and enemies, who are equipoised, satisfied. Such a devotee is very dear to me, because bhakti added with these qualities is very pleasing to Krishna, because that is bhakti includes all of this. So that person is practicing very nicely. However, in of themselves, they do not bring remembrance of Krishna. And we have to watch out for that pitfall. Rupa Goswami in this chapter is giving us all the things to watch out for that make us complacent. Our good qualities may make us complacent because we think, oh, I'm so better than the other devotees already. Why do I have to struggle? I'm always gentle, kind, all these things. I don't get into arguments. The temple president does. See, those managers, they're always, this thing. I'm so peaceful. But maybe not, right? Maybe they're struggling in their Krishna consciousness to preach Krishna consciousness, whereas we are not struggling. We're not trying to struggle for Krishna. So, so bhakti is even deeper than this. And Prabodhananda Saraswati in his Vrindavan Mahimamrita, he writes, actually, he says, let the moralists criticize me for going to Vrindavan Dham, for leaving everything, going to Vrindavan Dham. Let those who have good qualities, be satisfied with their good qualities and criticize me for my eagerness, madness to going to Vrindavan Dham. But I don't care for any of this. I will go to Vrindavan, right? So he actually points this out, that when a person comes to bhakti, those who are moralists and all, they will criticize a devotee, in fact. Look at you, you're irresponsible. You don't take care of your family. You don't put your family first, right? Like America first, family first. You're putting Krishna into everything. And the parents of devotees, very classic thing. They are, if their parents are not devotees, they accuse them of this, but that is okay. Of course, that doesn't mean that the devotee, just because the devotee has a green card to not being conscientious to cultivate these qualities. One has to be very kind and loving towards one's parents, towards towards one's relatives. But first and foremost is our devotional service. Saintly qualities automatically arise in a devotee. I know we have, Mother Urmila has put a lot of prasadam pictures in this slide. So maybe after this, everyone needs to have a big prasadam breakfast. Saintly qualities do not automatically generate love for Krishna, but love for Krishna does generate saintly qualities. Right, in chapter 13, after Krishna lists all the 26 qualities, he says the most important is pure devotional service. And through pure devotional service, all the other saintly qualities come. For example, vegetarians are not automatically devotees, but devotees are automatically vegetarians. The hunter turned devotee is a Shastric example of saintly qualities automatically developing in a devotee. So this sentence is the best sentence here. Saintly qualities do not automatically generate love for Krishna, but love for Krishna does generate saintly qualities. Who remembers the name of this devotee?
Mrgari.
Mrigari, yeah.
Very nice, Magrari. So Magrari, when Magrari became a devotee, when he was converted by Narada Muni into a devotee, he starts taking the name of Krishna. But he, at the time when he was converted, did not have sympathy towards the other animals, right? He wasn't like feeling, sad, or he just knew that this is wrong. Such a great sage is coming and he will curse me, and I should follow his advice because of the influence and purity of Narada Muni. But the next time Narada Muni meets him, he sees that Magrari is moving the ants out of the way. Why? Because he's feeling so repentant, more than even regularly devotees, because particularly his offense was torturing animals and other creatures. Therefore, that was a thing that he became very conscientious of. And that quality of non-violence, ahimsa, became so deeply ingrained in his heart, that he uh, uh, could not bear to even step on an ant. And we think that this is theory, this is a story of ages ago, but we practically see in our own life that the pure devotees are like this, right? Yet again, another example. Today, many examples are coming to mind, but my Guru Maharaj, when he would go on morning walks, like, we would be on a walk, there's so many things to think about, so many people would come and meet him, sometimes big businessmen, big devotees, like, famous devotees would come and go walking with him. And we would just forget ourselves, people taking pictures. Yet he was always conscious that we should not step on the ants. He would see an ant colony and he would stop and he would turn over and say, "Be careful, there's a lot of ants here." And then he would continue walking. He would avoid the ants. How is that possible? Only possible because of devotional service. So Magrari chants the names of Krishna, and then he develops the saintly quality of non-violence. 9 types of devotional practice and their archetypes. The 64 ways to practice pure devotional service are expansions from the 9 basic types of devotional service: hearing, chanting, etc. One can achieve ecstatic love by executing all 9 practices or by just one. So I was actually had this question in my mind when I was studying this, that, well, how do the 64 limbs compare with the 9 processes of devotional service? We say we should do Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, which Prahlad Maharaj describes as hearing, chanting, remembering, becoming a servant, offering worship, becoming a friend of Krishna. What am I missing? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, offering worship, Pada Sevanam, serving the lotus feet, Dasyam, okay, serving the lotus feet, Dasyam, becoming a servant, Sakyam, becoming a friend, Atmanivedanam, surrendering one's life to Krishna. I still missed one. If anyone remembers, please let me know.
Vandanam.
Vandanam, offering prayers. Yes, Vandanam. So these are 9 processes of devotional service. How do these connect? Well, these 64 items are expanding these 9. Just like offering prayers to the Lord was a few of the 64 items. And there are 3 or 4 different types of prayers that he mentions, right? That Rupa Goswami mentions. One can achieve ecstatic love by executing all 9 practices or by just one. And then Rupa Goswami mentions that we can do even one, we can do all 9, and they will lead us back to Krishna. And so therefore he gives the examples of all those who are exemplifying and doing this. Who are the devotees who exemplify each process? Hearing is Maharaj Parikshit. He attained perfection through hearing Shrimad Bhagavatam. Chanting is Shukadeva Goswami. He attained perfection by speaking Shrimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering Krishna. Even while snakes were around him, he was fixed in his remembrance of Krishna, therefore nothing could touch him. Praying is Akrura. He offered beautiful prayers, which we still read in the Krishna book. Worshipping the Lord's feet, Lakshmi Devi, she was always massaging Krishna's feet. Her focus is Krishna's feet. Deity worship is Prithu Maharaj. He was a saintly king who established so many temples and great deity worship. Servitude, Dasyam, who else but Hanuman? Lord Hanuman is the servant of Krishna, right? The example of service. Friendship, Arjuna. The best friend of Krishna, Arjuna. Complete surrender, Bali Maharaj. All nine, Maharaj Ambarish. Maharaj Ambarish did all nine, and that's described in the Bhagavatam. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vasang sivai kuntha guna nuvarnane. So he would do all five, all nine. And this is the end of the section on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Congratulations, everyone. You've made it to Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, to the end of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And next time, we get to enter Raganuga Bhakti. That's Raganuga Bhakti Sadhana, so nice. Now, after practicing sadhana perfectly, we get to enter into the waves of love of Krishna. And that's why so wonderful it is, right? So wonderful is this Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Because um, uh, uh, because it gives us, we don't have to, it's like learning how to play music, and then secondly, just playing music spontaneously. It gives so much pleasure to the heart, right? When we do something that we love doing. So we love Krishna and we'll just swim in that ocean of service, of pleasure to Krishna. And this is why the devotee is so enthusiastic to do their sadhana nicely, right? Vaidhi sadhana. They want to do nicely because they want to get to this level of Raganuga. And only when we practice our sadhana nicely do we come to this platform of Raganuga. And this is the key thing. Okay, so we will stop here. Perfect time is 8:15. We have 15 minutes for any comments, questions, corrections. Yashoda Vatsala Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much for today's session. I think it's breaking a lot of my previous conceptions because, all the time when we read Bhagavad Gita, even the translation there, it says principle of renunciation. So I was thinking all these are the basic principles. But so to just get myself clarified for my understanding, is it like this knowledge and renunciation and these saintly qualities, they can help us climb some few steps in the direction of sadhana bhakti, but they are not the the sufficient conditions. I am I'm from mathematical background, so we always say necessary and sufficient conditions in our school, college time, what we all learned. So is it that way, Prabhuji, that these are kind of, these are necessary to a path forward, but they are not the sufficient things, and the real is devotional service, which will actually, bring us there. That is my... Okay, thank you
Good
so much.
question, Prabhu. Yes. They are necessary. They're not necessary because Krishna's mercy is greater than our faults, right? So if we are engaged in Krishna's bhakti and we inspire his mercy somehow or the other, we can come to Krishna consciousness through this fast track method. However, they are necessary in the context that the only thing that's stopping us from achieving pure love for Krishna is offenses, right? Is offenses. I was just reading the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's such an amazing book, this Chaitanya Bhagavat. And that's why in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, again and again, he says that the actual writer of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes is Vrindavan Das Thakur, his Chaitanya Bhagavat. I am just, doing what he left. And why he says this again and again, because it's a very special book. And in that, Vrindavan Das Thakur, he writes that everyone gets Lord Chaitanya's mercy who chants the holy name of Krishna. Everyone. He says, except for one who is critical of devotees, right? So the only thing that's stopping us from getting prema bhakti are the offenses, and they are 10 in number. The first one being Vaishnavas, critical of Vaishnavas. Second is to still worship the demigods like they're same as Krishna, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master, to sin on the strength of the holy name. All of these. So these qualities help us avoid the offenses. So in one sense, bhakti is not dependent on them. Bhakti is independent, and it's all about the heart and devotional service. But the key part of bhakti is to avoid these 10 offenses. And the saintly qualities that one gets through jnana and vairagya and developing saintly qualities, they help us avoid the offenses so that we can get pure love for Krishna. And in another place, Vrindavan Das Thakur writes that how most of the offenses are done to devotees when we are attached to material things, right? So we say, well, okay, I'll avoid offenses to devotees, but I'm still going to ride my Porsche. And, but the problem is that the reason why offenses come is when we have some attachment, right? It may be attachment for fame, for respect, position, and therefore then we collide with other devotees, right? That's a material attachment. Or the attachment might be that I have so much wealth, therefore we become proud. And then the next time we meet a devotee, we're like, what do I need the devotees for? I'm doing great, right? So this vairagya helps us in becoming humble. Or the jnana helps us in avoiding the pitfalls of desiring fame, followers, prestige, and material things in exchange for our devotional service. So yeah, so that it's not necessary because Krishna's mercy is greater than any disqualification that we may have. Krishna's mercy is greater than our fallen condition, but it is almost necessary. Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So it's actually helps in my material world dealings, basically, so that I don't make more offenses or anything. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji. It clarified everything for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice comment, Prabhu. Nice question. Bimala Bhakti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam Prabhuji. So it's
Yeah.
such a good, I would say that again, the reminder about the aversion which you talked about. And I was just wondering about the renunciation and the jnana as Yashoda Vatsal Prabhu asked. So in Kartik Mass, we all do some kind of, renunciation. So, but then again, my understanding is because we are in such an initial stage, so that will help us to move forward. That is what my understanding is, and it is also I think that. But then, if we see the aversion, if we are renouncing some food or something, and we are looking forward to that, okay, I'm renouncing, I want to eat, then that will be a kind of attachment. Am I right?
So yes, and I would like to clarify that the renunciation that we take in the month of Kartik for Krishna, that is bhakti, right? That is bhakti, because that's one of the processes, 64 limbs of devotional life, to do some special service or do some special sacrifice for Krishna. So what Rupa Goswami is saying is vairagya without bhakti, jnana and vairagya without bhakti are not principles of bhakti. But bhakti that's supported by jnana and vairagya is bhakti, because it's part of bhakti.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you're taking vows during Kartik, sorry, is is very nice, and that pleases Lord Chaitanya. Like the austerity of Raghunath Das Goswami was very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. He was very pleased by his austerity. He would become so happy. So that is connected, right?
Yeah.
Done for Krishna, that is the key thing. Anything, knowledge, renunciation, if it's done for Krishna, it becomes bhakti.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. So
Thank you.
there are two small questions. You mentioned about the Bhakti Vriksha.
Hmm.
How does that look like? Is it some lectures? Is it continuous process, or is it kirtan? How does it look like?
It's once a week program in the evening. So generally it's
Okay.
Friday evenings because Friday is a nice day. People are off work, yet Saturday they get busy with other things. So our experiences, many devotees experience that Friday night is a nice night. So Friday evening, very simple, just kirtan, class, and prasadam.
Mm.
So it's
Okay.
and we cover like the Bhagavad Gita, verses from the Gita, or after that's done, then we cover sections of the Bhagavatam or Nectar of Instruction. So it's very simple program. It's just in the evening, you don't have to worry about where, when, or travel. This in the evening, opening up one's home, inviting people that you know, and then they sometimes invite people who they know, and doing kirtan, doing a class, and they come for the prasadam. So having nice prasadam.
Okay. Thank you. That's really cool. Good. And then also you mentioned about the books available online. My question is there any audio books available? I heard that BBT has something. I
Yes,
don't know if somebody knows about that.
yes. So if you go to krishna.com and the store
Mhm.
at krishna.com, you can find all of Amala Bhakta Prabhu's audiobooks, the whole Bhagavatam, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, everything you can download. And it's like the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita for $20. You download it and you have the whole audiobook. And Amala Bhakta
Mhm.
Prabhu's narrations are some of the best. And
Okay.
even more than that, they're on free on YouTube. But the free ones on YouTube are not so high quality. I find like some of them are, but some of them, when they were uploaded, they lost a lot of quality. So you don't get the best quality. In the same way, this book, Chaitanya Bhagavat, that I was mentioning, Damodar Prabhu, I forget his full name, but Damodar Prabhu has done a full recitation of it. It's an audio book, and you can get it on YouTube. So just type in Chaitanya Bhagavat narration. It comes up the whole thing, very high quality. You can listen to it all night. You just put it on and go to sleep listening it and turn it off in the morning. It's very soothing. You have the whole Krishna book narrated by Amala Bhakta Prabhu. And that's not so high quality on YouTube, but it's very high quality if you download it from krishna.com. So yeah, so there's so many. And there's also a transcendent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard about this one as well.
Mm.
So is it available on krishna.com?
Well,
Transcend.
go ahead, Prabhu. Srinivas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
That is an app. So you need to install the app and then you need to subscribe to it, and then you will find everything in all the languages, and you can listen to it while going in a car or anywhere. I think you need to pay based on the country and based on the location. You need to pay some dollars.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you
It's,
so much, Prabhu.
it's a one-time payment, and
Mm.
if you are not interested in paying, there is a Bhakti Vedanta Library app also. That also has Damodar Prabhu's recited Gita, Bhagavatam, and everything.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for bringing these things out because people don't realize it's there. And then you're like, why didn't I know this 5 years ago? I could have utilized all this time. Because often hearing is much easier than reading. And most of my Shastra is hearing. You're in the car, you can hear, you're washing dishes, you can hear, you're in the bathroom brushing your teeth, you can hear. You cannot read at those times, but you can hear.
Yeah.
And it's so absorbing. It's just like so nice once you're in the practice of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bhadra Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class as always. So I have two questions. One is regarding the renunciation. We talked about that devotees can renunciate opulent prasadam,
Mm.
right, to further progress in bhakti.
Yes.
If somebody who's not into bhakti or is coming new, and if he sees that, and then he would immediately relate that, okay, on one hand you're saying, everything is in the service of Krishna, and on the other hand you're, renunciating or renouncing prasadam. So, like, how do we address that type of a question with somebody who's totally new, because we don't want to give a wrong impression also.
Mm. Yes, Prabhu. Very nice point and question. This is why um, the austerities that a devotee does over and above the necessary austerities for bhakti, those austerities the devotee tries to hide. They actually hide it. That's why they don't advertise it, especially to the neophyte people, because they will misunderstand. Right? And this is a very nice point that you bring up. Like sometimes devotees do nirjal on Ekadashi, or they have, so someone asks them, they say, oh, today I have a bad stomach, so I'm not eating. Now, they're doing it every single Ekadashi and they're doing nirjal, but they don't tell others that I'm doing nirjal. Because people will think, well, becoming a devotee is like so painful. Once in 15 days, I have to fast and not drink anything, eat anything. And they may become scared to practice bhakti. So it's the fact that to the non-devotees, we tell them, being the devotee is the most fun thing. You can do anything you want. You just chant. The truth is, we don't do anything that we want. But we tell them, you can do anything you want. You just chant. Just add Krishna. Krishna consciousness you can just add 20 minutes a day to your life. You'll become a pure devotee. Right? So often devotees give like this because they are giving the medicine in a lollipop, like Prabhupada said. Right now they have to sugarcoat it. So absolutely, people will misunderstand, and this is why even our great preachers, who are very, very famous, like just as an example, he comes to mind like Amog Leela Prabhu. Like externally, he feels like he's like this person who's just having fun all the time, and that's the impression he gives. But if you look at his personal life, I went to the Dwarka temple where he was living. The devotees were telling me, and I could also see like some days he'll just drink one glass of juice, and he's fasting all day, and he's doing this vrata, and he's read, like he's leading actually personally a very austere life, but externally he just shows like he's a fun-loving normal person.
Right. Thank you, Prabhu. And the second question, I just wanted to clear my clarification on my understanding on the difference between a Mayavadi and a Nirvisheshwadi.
Mm.
I know they're almost the same, but
Mm.
there's a subtle difference. I just wanted to understand that.
So there's three things. One is Nirvisheshavadi. I'm pretty sure you're referring to like a Nirankari, right? They say that the ultimate reality is nothing.
Right.
Not that the ultimate reality is one, but it's nothing, which means that ultimate reality is simply emptiness, not it's God. The Mayavadi says that the ultimate reality is one, just light, Brahman, oneness. But the devotee, the bhakti yogi, says that the ultimate reality is Krishna. The Brahmavadi says that the ultimate reality is Krishna, but they are attached to worshipping the impersonal aspect. So they don't deny the personal aspect of God, but they're attached to worshipping the impersonal aspect. So one can be of any three shades. Of course, the best is the bhakti yogi who worships Krishna, but one can be a Buddhist or nihilist, ultimate reality is nothing, or Mayavadi or Brahmavadi. And there's distinctions between these three.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sucharu Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Prabhuji, like we read about the 9 basic practices and the examples.
Mm.
So In my mind, there are two examples. One is Shabri, the other one is Kevat.
Mm.
So, like, on what basis, like, these examples have been mentioned here?
Mm.
But if we consider Shabri and Kevat, because Shabri waited for throughout her life, and she just believed on on the words of her Guru Maharaj. So where will we put them? Or if not, then I just wanted to know the reason for it.
Mm. Sorry, I was a little distracted. What was the first part you were saying? So what is the question regarding Shabri and Kevat?
Can we put their name as an example over here?
Of what?
Like we mentioned the examples for the
Oh, I see. Of the
basic
9
life.
processes of, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
So
absolutely. There's so many devotees that are examples of these. These are the devotees who are given as kind of official examples. They're given by the Shastras as the exemplars of these 9 processes. So, in fact, there are thousands of devotees, millions of devotees, who attained perfection, particularly through Shavanam or Kirtanam or Archanam. But these are the ones that the Shastra, like Bhagavatam, chose to give as examples. Just like there are thousands of Mahajans. Srila Prabhupada is a Mahajan, yet still there are 12 Mahajans. They are the Mahajans that are listed in the scriptures. Yeah.
thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Nice question. Rasika Sudevi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanvad Pranam. Prabhuji, this question is related to our previous class for chapter 13. We were going through, our group, we were going through the questions, discussing as a homework. It was about the 5 potent items, chanting, deity worship, and others. The question is, explain how the reference given for it in Nectar of Devotion shows its superlative ability to evoke bhava bhakti. So we were not very clear on how to go about this. Can you help us understand a little better?
Yes, and that's why, and sorry, I should know this, but it's not on the top of mind. That's why in that chapter, I forget which chapter it is, Rupa Goswami gives verses demonstrating how each one of these individually, so he's put them together as 5, right? But the Bhagavatam hasn't put them together. The other scriptures haven't. But each one separately, when they were talking about chanting, let's say the Bhagavatam talks about chanting, the Bhagavatam points out how chanting leads to bhava bhakti. It points out how hearing leads to bhava bhakti. It points out how reading Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavatam leads to bhava bhakti. It points out how visiting places of pilgrimage leads to bhava bhakti. So for each one, he gives references on how this one leads to bhava bhakti, this one leads to bhava bhakti, and therefore all 5 of these practices are leading to bhava bhakti. So that's the evidences. One evidence is through practice, through the lives of devotees. One could give that evidence also. But even those lives we're getting to know through the scriptures. So he's giving evidences from the scriptures that this is how you know that this is leading to bhava bhakti. It's most potent in leading.
Wonderful. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. This was really helpful.
Thank you. Nice point question. Rashmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. So this question has been, I'm still trying to grasp this. I thought I got it clarified when you answered some of the other questions. Going back to the slide on knowledge not really being necessary, or devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentiment or desire or some such thing.
Yes.
We do read in we did read in the Bhagavad Gita that devotion without knowledge is sentimentality, and the other way around is, or just sentiment without. There was a flip of that where it's just intellectual speculation.
Yes, knowledge
And
without bhakti is sentimental speculation.
Right. So I'm trying to reconcile the two. But this slide does say that this is in, I don't know, is it really possible without knowledge to reach that high level of devotion? I mean,
Yes.
I feel like personally, I'm understanding more about the right way to pray and like how to be a devotee and everything. And that's only coming from all the, the sadhu sangha, the satsangs and the readings, all the scriptures. I mean, what I read.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
unless you're born in the family of a devotee,
Mm.
um, it's just so mixed these days otherwise. So I'm trying, I'm finding
How do
it,
you do
I'll
it? Yeah.
stop. I'm finding it hard to understand how that could
Yes. No, nice
hold
question.
true.
Yes. So Rupa Goswami mentions how only bhakti is necessary. Jnana is not necessary, ultimately. At the same time, we talk about 9 processes of bhakti, right? The nine
Mhm.
processes or passive bhakti. And what is the first one of those 9? It is Shravanam, like
Shravan.
hearing. And hearing what? Hearing the scriptures, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So bhakti itself includes um, Bhagavatam and spiritual knowledge. That knowledge is not jnana. Right? That knowledge is bhakti. And that is the knowledge that you're talking about. That, look, I need this knowledge. Otherwise, how can I practice bhakti? That's an absolute fact. But that knowledge, when we read Bhagavatam, when we read Bhagavad Gita, we are not engaging in jnana. When we read it from Prabhupada, then we're not engaging in jnana. But if we are reading it, like there's a scholar of Chaitanya Charitamrita who translated the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, Dimmock, and then his disciple Tony Stewart. And his disciple Tony Stewart openly blasphemes Lord Chaitanya. And they did an entire translation of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. How is that possible? Because they are hearing the scriptures, they're reading the scriptures, but they're engaging in jnana, not in bhakti. Right? So that's because they're reading through with the lens of speculative knowledge. They're not hearing it from Prabhupada. They're not translating it as an act of devotion. So, um, so, knowledge about Krishna given through the devotee in the mood of devotion is bhakti. And we find in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, we find that this devotee is sitting with the Bhagavatam upside down. The Gita, he's reading the Gita upside down. He doesn't know how to read, and tears are coming down his eyes. I mean, he's not even knowledgeable enough to hold the Bhagavad Gita straight. And he's just looking at Krishna's picture, crying that, oh, how merciful Krishna is. So he's an example of someone who has no knowledge, quote unquote knowledge, but has pure love for Krishna. So bhakti is not dependent on knowledge. That's the point that he's saying. However, jnana or knowledge, even many scholars, they become very nice devotees because they know that, well, there's a difference between the body and soul, and they have the knowledge of the Upanishads, and all that helps in the development of bhakti. So 2 points here. One is that we have to differentiate between types of knowledge. Some knowledge is bhakti. That Bhagavatam is bhakti. Bhagavatam through a devotee. But some knowledge is not exactly in the purview of bhakti, but that jnana can be helpful in the practice of bhakti.
Thank you, Prabhu. Super helpful.
Mm.
I know
Thank,
I'm clear now. Thank you.
thank you. That's a nice question because that comes up. We think, oh, knowledge isn't important. So, and then simultaneously we're saying, oh, here Chaitanya Bhagavat or here Bhagavatam. So why are we? This seems a contradiction. Or devotee thinks that knowledge is not important, so they don't read as much. So that's not the importance. That's very important to actually know the Shastras. Okay. Haripriya, you can give your summary. Thank you.
Yes, so just to, yes. So I had some points. So my first one is still here. We can see that Jnana means to focus on discriminating between matter and spirit and not Krishna. And Vairagya means renunciation even for Krishna. So neither of these is bhakti, because bhakti means renunciating but it means to also do devotional service with that, and not just renunciating everything. And then my next point is that but still Jnana and Vairagya can help the devotee initially in bhakti. So both of them can help the devotee like in the starting stage. And devotional service requires sincerity. So even a, a a meat eater can do devotional service. So Krishna will not accept that, but he can still do that because gradually he will he will leave he will come down up to that he will come that up to that level, and he will leave meat eating. And then my next point is that in bhakti we should have a soft heart, but both Jnana and Vairagya make the heart hard, and so they can harm bhakti. So basically, here we can basically see that bhakti and Jnana and Vairagya, they are not friends, because these both things can even harm bhakti, and bhakti is more important than these. So therefore, we should focus on bhakti. And you also gave the example of Durvasa Muni, that like how he's always kind of in anger, and he can curse anyone even upon a small incident. And then my next point is that so when we do something for Krishna, that is known as devotional service or bhakti. Arjun was doing bhakti but with attachment. So he was doing it with attachment. He was thinking that he will go to the forest, but he was thinking because he didn't want to kill his own relatives. So basically, he was kind of attached to his relatives, and so it was not really bhakti. So and yeah, so therefore we should be careful that we are not doing bhakti with attachment. And then one should not eat anything that is not offered to Krishna. Such vows are real renouncement. So, these such vows are real renouncement because they are doing that them for Krishna. And then false renunciation is also known as Falgu Vairagya, and basically it's renunciation that can harm bhakti. And the real renunciation is Yukta Vairagya, and Yukta Vairagya is renunciation that is important for bhakti, and that can help us in increasing and developing our love for Godhead. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So nice. Wonderful. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Sorry we went over time today. I really like to stick to 8:30, but they're very nice questions and discussion. We'll see you all next Saturday. Hare Krishna.